When Saudi Arabia unveiled the blueprints for Vision 2030, the centerpiece was the Line, a vast linear city designed to cut straight through the desert. The initial plans called for housing up to 9 million residents. The state committed an immense amount of capital to turn hundreds of miles of empty sand into the world's most ambitious real estate project. Then, the macroeconomic weather changed. Extended oil production cuts reduced the state's revenue streams, while regional conflicts introduced a new layer of economic friction, squeezing the national budget. The government's response was surprisingly blunt. Finance Minister Muhammad al-Jadaan made it clear that the state would act without ego, adjusting, deferring, or canceling projects entirely to align with fiscal reality. Facing these pressures, Saudi leadership began a quiet but wholesale reallocation. They diverted billions away from pouring concrete for prestige real estate, searching for assets that could generate immediate operational value. As a result, primary construction on the Line has officially halted, and its projected population target for 2030 has been capped at just 100,000 residents. This ledger tracks the capital. Funds are draining out of real estate and flooding into a $100 billion technology vehicle named HUMAIN. They've secured 18,000 NVIDIA processors, targeting 1.3 gigawatts of data center capacity by the decade's end. The Saudi state is now prioritizing the construction of a regional computing network over the expansion of its physical skyline. To house all this compute, the strategy centers on Oxagon, an industrial port city that is being repurposed into a high-density utility hub, packed with server racks designed to attract global technology firms.
Looking at this traffic map of the Arabian Peninsula, you can see the logistical problem with global data routing. Right now, data relies on subsea cables passing through the Red Sea and the Mediterranean, creating vulnerable bottlenecks. By laying terrestrial fiber networks across Saudi Arabia, data bypasses those contested sea lanes entirely, dropping latency between European and Asian markets. At the same time, new bilateral digital agreements require foreign firms to process their data locally. To comply with these residency laws, major international cloud providers are actively building domestic server regions right inside the kingdom. Saudi Arabia is utilizing its physical geography to build the fastest, most secure data transit hub connecting two continents. Across the Gulf, corporate executives are deploying computing power to solve a specific problem: margin protection. Chief financial officers treat these tools as instruments for trimming excess and keeping costs strictly contained. Take the banking sector. Financial institutions are running localized large language models to automate heavy compliance and internal auditing tasks, effectively cutting their per-transaction costs by 30 to 40%. In the energy sector, Saudi Aramco uses computational models directly at their industrial facilities to predict equipment failures, avoiding the high costs of unplanned shutdowns. Even in consumer finance, localized computing is reaching unbanked populations. Digital microfinance platforms evaluate credit risk in seconds by analyzing alternative data points, like mobile usage and utility payments. At the institutional level, open banking networks are bypassing the slow corresponding banking chains. Payment settlements that used to tie up supply chains for days are now cleared in seconds. Physical real estate takes decades to generate returns. But by tapping into an optimized computing grid, regional businesses are slashing recurring expenses and protecting their profit margins in a matter of months. Building a digital empire at this speed requires advanced hardware, and acquiring that hardware forces nations to make specific diplomatic choices. This is where Allam comes in. It's a $100 billion Saudi hardware firm, and its leadership has made an explicit public commitment to align its technology ecosystems with the West. As this network diagram shows, accessing top-tier processors requires exclusivity. Allam's CEO confirmed that, to secure reliable partnerships with the United States, the firm would sever ties and divest from Chinese technology components if requested by Washington. This isn't an isolated strategy. The United Arab Emirates set the exact same precedent when its own AI firm dropped Chinese hardware to secure a $1.5 billion investment from Microsoft. Choosing a cloud service or silicon supplier has become a high-stakes diplomatic decision. Every purchase of Western hardware carries the risk of regulatory exclusion if the supply chain isn't audited for geopolitical alignment. There is also a structural danger to this expansion. When a nation centralizes its financial and industrial systems into a few dense cloud environments,
the potential damage of a single breach is magnified. The threat models are severe. Attackers are finding simple phishing entry points and then moving laterally straight into critical industrial control systems and payment gateways. In response, the Saudi Data and Artificial Intelligence Authority strictly enforces mandatory native encryption and total local data isolation for every new piece of infrastructure. State authorities have reclassified cybersecurity as a primary capital expenditure. It is now a foundational layer of the physical architecture, budgeted and integrated long before the first server is installed. Saudi Arabia's 2030 skyline won't look exactly like the sci-fi megacities in the early brochures. Instead, the real capital has gone underground, building an invisible digital infrastructure that will serve as one of the globe's most influential processing networks.